welcome to Gaston Spotlight. My name's Will Garner, and I'm here today with best-selling author Omar Tyree. Thanks for being with us here.
All right,
Mr.
thanks
Tyree.
for having me. Yeah.
How are you doing today?
I'm good, but it's allergy season, so that the pollen is tearing me up,
Oh,
so,
I know what you mean.
Yeah, I got to deal with that every spring and every fall. You got to deal with it.
Absolutely. So, you've written best-selling books, sold millions of books worldwide. You're an educator, a lecturer. How many, just how many books exactly have you written?
28.
28?
Yeah, and I've had ideas for other books that, sometimes you can't get the financing from publishers. And then I have a lot of nonfiction books I want to write with other celebrities, athletes. They have to be ready to do them.
Yeah.
And so those books I haven't been able to do because they're not ready to sit down and do their books. And that includes Floyd Mayweather Jr., Allen Iverson, I had a book outlined for him. Cicely Tyson, who was like a legend in acting, I have a book ready for her. But these individuals have to be ready to go. Chris Brown, his mother wants a book on him and his R&B career. But these type of books, you have to have them ready to sit down and do it. And none of those individuals are ready to sit down and do the books. So, I can't do those books yet.
Oh, all right. So
yeah.
what was the first book that you ever wrote?
I wrote a book called Colored on White Campus. I went to the University of Pittsburgh back in 1987, and it was, 3% African American, and a lot of campuses are still like that, and a lot of the people that was on campus that were African Americans were athletes, and I happened to wanted to play football at the time, so I was going to be another athlete. I was on the track team, and so that was my first book, just dealing with that whole disparity of African Americans getting an opportunity to go to college and be outside of athletes and just be students on campus, and so that was the first book I wrote. You get a lot more information on the college level that you didn't receive in high school. So that was a very political book, a didactic book, and that was the first statement that I wanted to make as a young writer.
Oh, that's awesome. It sounds like
it's now called College Boy. So I changed the title. Colored on White Campus, it sounds too much like an essay. So people were like, it sounds like an essay. And I was, again, an educated kind of dude, so I wanted to, put out that type of book. I changed the name to just College Boy because that's a simpler, fiction type of title.
Yeah.
But it's still the same book.
But it still allows you to get the information out there. Now, before you started writing books, you originally went to college for something completely different, but could you maybe tell us about why you started writing and how you got started writing?
Well, my mother's a pharmacist, so, naturally, what a lot of kids do, we follow what we see around us. Yeah. And so I said, well, mother's dealing with, pharmaceuticals and drugs with the lab coat on, and she makes good money. And, I'm a math and science guy. I was a math and science guy going into college. So, I followed what she was doing as a major, but I really wanted to play football. Oh. And so, you don't have a major called football. You know what I mean? So you had to pick something. And so I picked pharmacy. But then in going through the whole regular courses and classes of college work, I found out that I had a knack for storytelling. And then all my English professors wanted me to do something extra with that, and I ended up writing a student diary my freshman year that was published with all the minority students, and then they had people who, were seniors, juniors, and sophomores reading my freshman material, and then I had people asking me to help them with their assignments, their English. I was like, whoa, and so once I did that, and I got an A in English, and I passed into the highest level of freshman English, it was pretty much like, you got something going here. What are you going to do with it? And so that's how I got involved with it. Once I had all that fanfare from other students and peer groups, understanding I was pretty good at what I was doing as a writer. The teachers understood that. And then I was in creative writing classes where my stuff still stood out. And so you get to that point, and it's like either you're going to use it or you're going to lose it. And I stepped up to the plate and continued to do creative writing.
Oh, all right. So you said you've written 28 books. Now, over that course of time, or even from when, like you said, you started, how has your writing style changed, if it has at all?
Well, you get older, you learn more things. I don't like writing the same book twice, so I typically, I don't call myself a genre writer. I'm more of a parachute writer that wants to write anything. Problem is, when you're writing for an audience, they may want to read the same material. They may be genre readers. And so every time I would change a book and change a subject, the audience would pretty much say, Omar, I can't keep up with you. I don't want to go over there. Stay over here. So I had a problem with that. Even with the editors and the publishers, your audience wants you to write about this, but you want to write about, E, G, and F. They want A, B, and C. You know, your audience wants 1, 2, and 3. You want to write about 4, 5, and 6. You know, so that becomes an issue. But yeah, I have so many subjects because I wanted to write about so many different things. I don't think I could have stayed in one genre and write 28 books. I would have been bored to death.
Yeah.
But again, that leaves a lot of gaps between, you know, what your audience wants and what you want to put out. You know, so in writing those 28 books, I'm always changing. In fact, I always get, you know, when they read a new book, oh, this book is different. And I said, well, name one book that was the same that I've ever put out, you know. And so you get this all the time. This book is really different. This book is really different. I said, look, all my books are different. They all have different titles. They all came from different states of mind, different subjects that I wanted to write about. I even had a trilogy series with my Fly Girl books where I did a second book for The Love of Money. The woman was about 7 years older, 8 years older. She's a different person now.
Yeah.
If you're the same person 7, 8 years from now, you know, it's particularly going from college to outside of, you know, you're going to change a lot. And then later on, I wrote another book, The Boss Lady, 6 more years, you know, and with that, she became a legend in Hollywood and she was writing movie scripts. Now she has a brand. You're going to change again.
Yeah.
And so the books are going to change. And so, yeah, I'm always changing. And so you asked that question. You adapt to what's going on around you. You adapt to new writing styles. You adapt to what you want to do. You know, so with this new book here, for instance, All Access, you know, this book deals with how much people are willing to give up of their personal lives with this whole reality TV thing, you know, social media. Now people are putting out a lot of their personal business to gather support, popularity, sponsorships, followers. You know, you're giving up a lot. And I'm like, hey, how much of your personal life were you really willing to put out there?
Yeah.
And so every book I'm changing because the subjects change and we change. And so I just want to adapt to what's going on in the community. And, you know, some people are not able to keep up with that.
Yeah.
But that's what I want to do. I'm still a journalistic mind, so I'm always thinking about current events and what's going on right now. You know, so that's what I want to write about typically.
Well, it's good to just stay on the edge of everything. And you mentioned that you have all these different genres and everything, but do you actually have a particular audience that you write to, or is it just anybody who wants to pick them up and read them?
Yeah, that's a hard thing because you would love for everybody to read your books.
Yeah.
But once I got about 5 years in the business, I was about 29 years old, 30, and I was writing for older women, you know, because I was still young at 29, 30 with like 4 or 5 books. This guy's still young. Most of the women I was writing for was like 39, 40 something. And here I am, I'm thinking like, do I really want to write for this audience? And so then I made a conscious decision to write for younger audience. And so I started going after the teenagers and the young 20s in the African-American community. And so I had this big old media marketing plan, you know, for my book. And then I said a date is part of what the younger people are used to because we used to buy, you know, music on Tuesdays. Everybody had a release date. And of course, films will still come out on Fridays for the most part. And so I said, look, the people are used to dates, particularly young people. You have to give the book a date. And the publishers thought I was crazy. They said, look, we don't put dates on books. We don't do that. We just say the middle of this month, the middle of that month. Coming out. I said, no, you can't say April. You have to say April the 28th. You know what I mean? So they can participate or get ready and anticipate that exact date and have the money. And the publishers, oh, no, they're not going to do that. And so I had a book coming out in August in 2000, which was a sequel to Fly Girl, which is my most popular book. And so I started promoting on my website August the 15th, Tuesday, August 5th. And I put it on T-shirts, I had flyers, I had it on everything I talked about. I had it buttons. And let me tell you something. When Tuesday, August the 15th came, we sold out 50,000 copies nationwide. Man. They had to go back to emergency. And I said, I told you guys that you have to date material and they'll get ready for it. And so from that point on, you know, they were like, okay, now. And then it was funny. I did that the 2000. The next year, Harry Potter started doing dates, and they had like these witchcraft nights where the kids would show up at midnight with the little hats and the magic, and they dated it. And I'm talking about Harry Potter, the numbers went up and up and up and up. Wow. A lot of people think Harry Potter was a success right out the gate when that's not the case. When that book first came out, it was like some obscure witchcraft book, and it grew and grew and grew. And so by the time I had already did this date thing, Harry Potter came right behind. I'm not saying they copied the idea from me, but it was ironic that I did it first, and then they came, and then every year Harry Potter had this release dates where kids are lining up with these hats and the magic wands at midnight, you know. So it was funny how, you know, you got to do that. But then I started aiming after a younger group, but then that younger group grew up, And I grew up, you know, and then I wanted to write older material again, and the group was, and then you have a younger group again that, you know, Omar's writing older, so you lose some of the, unless you want to keep writing for a younger group. But once I hit 40, I'm like, man, look, I'm not, you know, I can't keep writing for teenagers. So, you know, you change, your audience changes. You would love for everybody to read it, but your content is going to pretty much determine who's going to read it, depending on what you're writing about. And so it happened that I started a whole lot of young writers and readers, and a lot of them were writing what they call urban work, which is really a whole lot of inner city, young African-American content. And it got to the point where a lot of the books started to talk strictly about crime and, you know, that kind. I'm like, okay, we have more going on in crime, but a lot of the young people, they like, it's like hip hop. They got to have raw, rough stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you know what, dude, I'm not out there like that. You know, I'm not writing. And so I lost that young audience because I wasn't willing to put out this criminalistic, crazy stuff. And then new young writers were able to do it because they're in their 20s. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, I'm 40-something. You're in your 20s, so you can get away with writing that stuff. That doesn't make any sense. I got kids right now, and I'm trying to, you know, have a proper presentation for. I don't want to be writing that. And so, yeah, your audience is going to change a little bit too, unless you're writing something that never changes. If you're writing crime stories your whole life, then you got the same audience. If you're writing love stories your whole life, you got the same audience. But for me, since I was always changing the subjects, the audience would change too.
That's really great. Like I never really thought about the whole when I remember when Harry Potter started coming out when I was younger. And it just kind of exploded. But now you've explained that to me. I didn't even think about that.
It picked up, and when it picked up, they had new ideas. And when they did that midnight thing, man, that was it.
Yeah.
You know, people lining up at midnight with little hats, and I said, wow. And it just, the numbers went up every year, like 2 million first print, 4 million first print, 6 million first print. You know, and then they could never sell a book at full price. There was some huge books, and so they put the $27 price on it, but you're buying it at 40%. So I don't know who bought it at the regular price. Everything was slashed. You know, but when you print that many books, they're printing them for like $1 a piece. You know, so they made tons of money.
Now you mentioned the Fly Girl series, and I was told that you want to see it on the big screen. Now, how are you planning to make that actually happen?
Yeah, right now, Fly Girl has been picked up by Cold Black and Lionsgate. Cold Black is the African-American film company who really made a partnership with Kevin Hart.
Oh,
and when they did that partnership with Kevin Hart, he's bananas now. He's like, he's a black guy. Can we get Kevin Hart? Can we get Kevin Hart? Golly. So Kevin Hart's in that position now where he's a guy. But Cold Black was a company that, you know, made that deal with him. And they had a partnership with Lionsgate, which means that Kevin Hart went through Cold Black to deal with Lionsgate. Well, Cold Black also wanted to deal with my Fly Girl series, and I've been talking to the main guy, Jeff Clanagan. He runs Cold Black. I've been talking to him since 2003, and every year he was, let me get Fly Girl, let me do something with Fly Girl. And he was still, at that time, he was doing straight-to-DVD movies with a lot of comedians. You know, you get these comedy tapes where it's like an hour, but it's straight DVD. I said, there's no way in the world I'm going to deal with you if you're only doing straight DVD. I want to be in theaters. But once he did that Kevin Hart deal, and Lionsgate is that now they're elevated, you know, his status to, you know, films and all that. And so then it was like my partner was like, Omar, he still wants Fly Girl. Are you going to do something or not? And, you know, we went ahead and did that deal with Cold Black and Lionsgate in 2013. Now we're in 2016, they still don't have the movie, and you know, people ask me all the time, when is the movie going to, you have no control over what Hollywood does, and the more you complain about it, they start to talk about you're difficult, he's hard to get along, and they try to run your daggone, you know, personality and reputation through the mud, when all you're doing is speaking the truth. Like, dude, you bought the rights, let's get the movie going. We're going to get it done. You see that guy, he's rough, he's hard to do. Look, I'm just wanting as the fans are asking me every day, I'm just trying to get the movie done. And so Hollywood is a very fickle place, man, where they don't want you. So I stopped going out there. I let my partner stay out there and do that. But right now we're working, you know, to get Fly Girl done. I'm trying to leave those guys alone. From what I hear, they haven't liked a couple of the screenplays yet, so they have to agree what the screenplay they want to shoot. Then we can move forward. But that's where we are right now, stuck in that hole of the content that they want to put out, and they won't talk to me because they always look at us authors as having too much power, and we don't understand the Hollywood business. We're writers of books and not writers of film and all that kind of stuff. And so that's where we are right now in that period of, are we going to get this done? Is Omar going to push them? Are you going to sit back? And so that's where we are right now.
That's just that. It's a nice little insight into all that as well. Yeah. Earlier, you actually mentioned that you have like a journalistic style of writing, or and I want to assume that's because you worked as a reporter and editor in the newspaper business. So what do you have any opinions on about like the printed news and what that's all about that you can maybe share with us?
Well, you know, I just read a lot. You know, I have newspapers all over the place, so I try to keep up on current affairs. You know, so for the most part, again, going back to this All Access book, which is available on Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, at my website at omartyree.com, I'm just watching what humans are doing and what we're responding to. And so that's my process. I'm thinking all the time. I don't think writers get enough credit for being, you know, outstanding thinkers. That's who we are. Because you're filling out books with information, words that have to make logical sense for the reader. And we're doing that again and again and again. Yeah. Well, if you don't make any sense and you don't know how to put things together, and I put a book out and you're reading it, it doesn't make any sense, but you throw it down. You're not going to be able to put out 28 books and keep an audience.
Yeah.
You know, so that's what the whole process is of journalism, me studying everything so I can continue to be on point with the current affairs in a conversation, in a book that keeps you into it and then makes you close and say, wow, that was a good book and you want to talk about it. That's what we do this for.
That's really awesome.
Yeah.
So now you founded your own branch of a non-literacy program, and what is that called, and what made you decide to start that?
What happens with a whole lot of businesses right now, the major corporations, what they're doing now as a part of their regular modus operandi for business, they don't want to help finance ideas. They'll tell you, you come up with an idea, let me see how far you get with it. And then they watch you build it, then they'll say, now we can buy you. They don't want to develop anything. That's over with. So whether you're talking about films, books, music, any technology, you have to build it from the ground up and find investors before those major companies come anywhere near you. So with that being the case, whenever I start talking about books that are out of the, you know, the regular box, you know what I mean, out of the regular genre, publishers are like, we pass on that. We don't. So you have to do it yourself. And so even though I've published 28 books, if I'm trying to put out something that's outside of what they're used to looking at right now, then I'm not going to get a lot of support from these major publishers. And so you were forced to put out your own genre and your own book and your own imprint again so that you can do it. Yeah. You know, and I had an investor to go involved with it. And so you find out how to execute on your own. And I started off with my own publishing company years ago, so I understand how to do it.
Yeah, so, okay, you've done all these amazing things. You've started a non-literacy program. You've written 28 books. You've traveled everywhere.
Yeah.
What now for you? What's in the future for you?
Well, I got this little CD right here, so if they can see that, Check the Time is a CD. So now I'm getting back into music because I'm looking at music and I'm looking at, my sons are 17 and 19, and they spend an awful lot of time on their cell phones, listening to music and watching videos a lot of times that are music oriented, you know, music videos. And so I'm watching this, and that's their whole generation. It's all of them. And so I'm watching it, and they don't read my work. You know what I mean? It's a new generation. I had a generation that's older than them. They're in their 30s now. So I'm looking at this young teenager and 20 generation. I'm saying, how do I can't get them through the books. Now, if I can get the films to come out, I can get them through the films, you know, because that's the video. Then it's going to have a soundtrack. But I'm looking at this, I'm saying, look, dude, you're getting old, but you're still young enough looking where you can still connect to them. And I'm still a poet, so I understand how to write to music. It's still spoken word. And so I said, look, man, I have to figure out a way to get their attention, okay? Reintroduce myself to the young people, whether they like it or not. And then once I reintroduce myself to them, now I can sell them a book. Because if they don't know who you are, you can't sell them anything. And so I'm looking at 3 different reasons why I'm getting into music. Number 1 is to reintroduce myself to that young audience who's not reading books. They're stuck on their cell phones and their earphones, okay? You know what I mean? All day long. So I got to get to them. Number 2, it's a lot of capital in that. Right now, even during the college campuses, the college students know the musicians and the athletes. They don't know educators. They don't know anybody. It's amazing. They know all. And so now I'm thinking, okay, to get back on the college campuses, they have to know who I am. If I get involved in music, now they'll know who I am. And then the third thing is the education again. I'm going to say some things that mean something in music versus a 22-year-old who's just, you know, spitting bars about whatever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm going to say something of value, something that has some wisdom to it. And so those are the 3 reasons why I'm getting involved in that. And I have to, because right now, until that movie drops, I have no way of really marketing books right now to a group that's really not interested.
Yeah.
So you have to get them interested. And so that's where I'm forced to check the time. It's called Check the Time because, again, I'm a journalist, and time means everything. Where are we right now?
Yeah.
And so I put out my first poem, which is a spoken word poem on my website right now, Where Are We Now, which is talking about America, the times of America, social media, racial times, economic times, gender, has all that stuff in there in one song, you know. So those are the things that I can do in music that you may not read, but you can listen to it because it's only 4 minutes, you know, versus having to read a book that may take you 4 days, you know, or a week or so. And so that's what I'm doing now to make sure I can continue to stay valid and use my skills and literacy and poetry and continue to push it to my community.
Well, that was really great. Like you said, time is such a key word. You know, things can change in like 6 years, 6 or 7 years, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
And speaking of time, we're about out. So, Mr. Tyree, thank you so much for joining us today. It was a pleasure to meet you and hear about everything you've done. You can learn more about Omar Tyree at his on his website, omartyree.com. Thank you for watching Gaston Spotlight, and we'll see you in the next episode.